All right, everyone, welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand, where we help CEOs and founders get on top-rated podcasts. Definitely check us out at www.commandyourbrand.com and check out our book, which I think you guys will enjoy, called thebestpodcastbook.com. Definitely check it out, Command Your Brand. So I have a very special guest speaker who I kind of really want to talk to because he's, I've dabbled around this subject for, some years and kind of got a taste of it, during COVID, and, we kind of are bored and we're reading, we just do nothing. We want something to do, right? So I'm very fascinated in this subject because it's such a interesting time, because we're in a time period where things go really well, and then now we're not so well in terms of actually getting real estate and, just the whole aspect of it. Because I really want to talk about a lot of that, and also just general being a CEO at this time period, especially what we're going through today. So this person here is just, kind of an interesting guy who, has been through a lot between, in the work life of, working a 9 to 5 to now he's his own CEO and founder, has his own company, and he's just really rocketing his company to the next level. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Chris Larson. Chris, thanks for joining the show, man.
Josh, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I just first want to go over a little bit, because some people may not know you, maybe some people do, but please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and also why you're so passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, and we didn't really chat about this in the beginning, Josh, but when you say like, why am I so passionate about what I do? I grew up in Maryland. I started racing bikes when I was 14 years old. Ended up went to college, went to Virginia Tech, and I got a biomechanical engineering degree, but my mission during that point in my life was to go pro as a professional cyclist. And I was on track. My team actually ended up going pro, but the year my team went pro, I quit. I walked away from the sport. I actually sold all my bikes. And the reason is that my best friend, my training partner, and he was going to be my roommate. He was a year younger than me. He passed away that summer in between my freshman and sophomore year of college. So I went back to school. I really used cycling as my therapy, but I was looking back, I was probably depressed. I really miss my friend. He was like a brother to me. We met right before I turned 15, and we literally rode together every single day. And those of you that are athletes, wherever on a team or, participated, when you go through, physical or really any real challenge in life with another person, it brings you closer. And, whether you're in the military or business or sports, it's all the same, right? And, that really pulled at me. But then something dawned on me, Josh, and that was, he was 18 when he died. Wow. And I really, I thought, if I died tomorrow, would I really be happy? And I thought, riding my bike around in circles around these race courses, I was meant for more than that. And there was other stuff going on in the sport at the time, but I said, you know what? I don't want to have any regrets in life. And if I keep racing my bike, I don't think I'm going to be as happy as if I go and I really experience life. And I had this kind of epiphany, which, we all really know, which is, if you want to be able to live life on your own terms, you need money. You need financial independence. So I set out on this course to achieve financial independence when I was 20 years old. And I started by day trading, and I was making $5,000 a month as a junior in college day trading. But I was laying there one morning in bed at 3 a.m., hadn't slept, got up, drank like a Red Bull or Monster drink or something. And I was like, I'm going to kill myself if I'm doing this for like 20 more years. Yeah. I can't live like this. I'm like, this isn't financial independence. This is, I might as well go work on Wall Street. I actually got an MBA in finance. I was like, I might go work on Wall Street. But I said, there's got to be a better way. So I read 250 books on money, finance, business, stocks, trading, real estate. And when I hit real estate, I said, this is going to be my path. So even though I got my MBA in portfolio management, like institutional money management, I bought my first property that following year at 21 years old. I built my own portfolio. Now, the challenge is when you're that young, you run out of capital real quick if you don't come from wealth. And my father died when I was 5. My mother was an assistant teacher. I had a little bit of money to help me in college, but I relied on scholarships and in-state tuition, and working while I was in college. But I didn't have money. I didn't have capital. So I said, I got to go get a job. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. He was big in sales. I'd sold things when I was, starting at age 12. I was like, man, I'm going to be a sales guy. And I got introduced to somebody in the medical device space. So I spent 18 years in the medical device space. But what I was doing was I was taking all that money I was making, I was saving half of what I made, and I was buying real estate or investing in real estate. And that allowed me to walk away from my full-time role in 2016. And I ended up going into a leadership role, managed a medical device distributorship. And that was around the time we started syndicating real estate deals. So we built from there. And out of that time period, 2015, 2016, we started Next Level Income in late 2018 as our education platform. And what we do at Next Level Income, Josh, is we help investors, we help individuals. Everybody's an investor in some way, shape, or form. Through education and investments, achieve financial independence. And I think through financial independence, that allows us to spend our time doing what we're really passionate about. And, I love business. I love entrepreneurship. And I think, we can all go out and really make a massive difference if we're doing what we want to do, through entrepreneurship and philanthropy.
Yeah. I think it's a great story because a lot of people out there, I'm 30. So like a lot of us, some of us struggle, even just little people who are younger, they kind of struggle with, okay, I'm lazy. I'm, doom scrolling. I'm like literally on my phone. I mean, obviously you and I grew up where we never grew up with phones. Like I think I had my first phone when I was 17, 18 years old. And it was kind of funny that we obviously people who want to be entrepreneurs and they want to do the next thing, but they're like, how do I overcome that? And I think for you kind of had this, you had an epiphany, but also you had a lot of life things going on that really catapulted you to actually achieve that. And I think, would you say that the first things that you mentioned were those like your tipping point that like you wanted to go off somewhere to go off and start your own thing?
Yeah, that was my tipping point. And on your point of, I hear people say, oh, I'd love to do that. I just don't have enough time. When you said my 9 to 5, I was like, I was thinking to myself, 9 to 5 would have been amazing. I worked, I was on call for 12 years. I mean, I worked, I worked 70 days straight at one point. And I mean, I worked so much that I spent 3 days straight in the hospital. I slept in the hospital, because I had cases in the middle of the night and I'd go in for surgeries. Which was cool, but when you have a family, it's very challenging. So I would say, we've got some great resources on the website. If you go to nextlevelincome.com, I've got an article there. You can type into my little chat bot on the bottom. You can have a virtual conversation. Just say, how can I make time to do what I want? We've got a great blog. It's how to create 20 or 40 more hours a week to do, what you want, to spend more time. And my number one thing is if you don't have the time that you want, eliminate social media, eliminate the news. I would even say, hey, if you're spending, 8 hours watching football on Sundays, maybe you got to take a step back from that. And the big thing is when you do that, get up first thing in the morning and ask yourself, what is the number one priority in my life? If it's getting healthy, work out. If it's writing a book, as I did, I wrote my book from 5:30 to 7:00 in the morning while my family was still sleeping. Do that. Get up. If you're trying to make your first investment, get up and spend 30 minutes looking at a deal every day. If you're starting your own business, get up a little bit earlier, go to bed a little bit earlier, stop watching the news like I was doing. We cut off cable news and, start and work on your business first thing in the morning. And, sometimes like for several years, I worked about 16 hours a day. I'd work in the morning. I'd work throughout the day. I'd work until, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I'd go to bed and I'd do it all over again. But I knew I had that end point. And that's the thing that people, it's like, people don't like to talk about that, but you have to have a high income career, a high income business. And to do that, you just have to put in more work than other people to be successful no matter what you do. That's something I try to teach my teenage boys today.
Nice. How many boys do you have?
Very, very lucky. Only have 2, but 15 and 13. And,
wow.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Now, I guess for you, because obviously you've probably spoken to a lot of CEOs, founders, or maybe even people who want to become those at some point in the
Yes.
future. I guess,
Yeah.
looking back now, like you're looking back at your 18-year-old self, who's
Yeah.
kind of a little distraught, and like just you have all the people in the world who are also like that.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to people who are in the similar or same situation with, like,
Yeah.
trying to build something for themselves, making themselves
Yeah.
more valuable or worth their life, give their life more meaning in terms of, what they provide?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned I've talked to a lot of CEOs, founders,
Mhm.
people that want to be, and I just left a meeting with my partners. They have a summit every year, and we were lucky. We had a billionaire there, and I got to spend an afternoon, evening with him and his wife, and
Mhm.
he talked specifically to this point, and he talked about you know the value of going in and leading by example, right? If you're leading a business, being the one that's there on the weekends, but don't forget what's most important. He said, "Hey, sometimes I bring my boys with me, my son with me to work on the weekend, and he could kind of see what I was doing." But the other thing that really stuck out to me, and this is what he was told by somebody that was very wealthy that he met, one of his mentors. He said, "When you're young, even if you can't afford it, devote your time and money to a charity, to a cause that's bigger than you." So I think the big thing is, decide who you want. The first thing we do with our coaching clients is we have them create a 3-year vision to get really clear on what they want to do. I think 3 years is an amount of time we can literally change our entire physiology, like our cells turnover. Um, every 3, 5, 6 years. So you can literally recreate your whole self, your whole life in a very short period of time. But you got to be clear on what your mission is, and you have to give back to the world. And I think when you do that, you end up getting more in return.
Yeah, I think that's so true because a lot of people, like a lot of people, have always mentioned like, money isn't really everything. It's just what you're bringing to the world and how you're
Yeah.
impacting the world for
Yeah.
the better really does
Yes.
that for people, because I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
people, that are unfortunately we're living in an age like we're more money motivated than really anything else. I think just
Yeah.
and there's a mindset that has to be changed, with
Yes.
people like that. So I think like
Yeah.
what would you say were like, some 3 or 4 things that, as a new CEO or as like
Mhm.
one that is wanting to become a CEO, what is the mindset they should have? Like what are some 3 or 4 key points that they should have?
Yeah. So again, I think, well, let me see here if I can kind of go in terms of priority. I'd say the number one thing is you need to have an abundance mentality. And what I mean by that is, the world's not a zero sum game. The rich are vilified a lot of times in today's society. But I mean, even if you go into the Bible, if you look, the Bible talks about wealth in, multiple different ways.
Mm.
Um, and money, like you said, isn't everything. I can tell you, once you have enough, there's always another level above you, right? It's
Mhm.
like people look at me and they're like, "Oh, I want to be where you are." And I look at, this billionaire. I say, I want to be where he is. I want to I want to be, you get to 1 million, you want to get to 10 million, you get to 10 million, you want to get to 100 million, you get to 100 million, you want to get to 1 billion. Then you get to people like Ted Turner. He's got billions and billions of dollars. And in an interview, he was asked, isn't like 5 billion enough? And he goes, "I don't know." It's like, what? 5 billion's not enough? So if a guy like that doesn't have enough, then what is enough? And the answer is that there's never enough, right?
Right.
Um, you always want that next level, but you have to have an abundant mentality. And that means if you help other people, then you can create all the wealth that you want if you help other people create that wealth. So that's the first thing. If
Mhm.
you're around other people, and then the second piece, and this kind of cascades into that, you have to surround yourself with people of a similar mentality. I had a
Mhm.
partner early on, he had a scarcity mindset. He felt like if investors made a lot of money, it would take money out of his pocket. And that you can't have a scarcity mentality. That is a poison. That is a virus in society. And it leads to things like this class warfare, like we see in politics today. And it's very insidious. And I think at the extremes, it can actually lead to, as we've seen in recent times, even violence, right? Where people are
Mm.
saying, "I need to take from this person, or this person's taking from me." We
Right.
saw the CEO of United Healthcare shot. And it's like, people felt, and look, I spent a lot of time in healthcare. It's not perfect, It's like, oh, this company is taking away from these patients. And whether that's true or not, the solution isn't to, take from the other person. We have to find a way to create win-win situations. But partnerships are extremely important in that. So you have to have the right people with the right mindset in the right areas. So that's number two. Number three is you have to prioritize your time, which I mentioned earlier. So find what's important and spend the time on that. And then number four, so I'm trying to tie all these together, is while you're building your business, when you get to that point, or even before you get to that point, get into a habit of spending time giving back. I've coached cycling teams. I've started cycling teams where you help young athletes develop and get to their next levels. I've been coaching since I was 19 years old. We've done mentorship, financial mentorship in this, and now our platform. Like if you go to nextlevelincome.com, you can get a ton of free resources. You can get our podcast there. We've been doing that for it'll be 7 years here in the next month or two. You can get a free copy of my book, so we'll even send you a copy. And people, my wife is like, how much have you spent, sending these books out for free? And I'm like, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. But, people read the book and they're, they come back to us and they invest, they find, different things. And then the last piece is, when you have that money, I think being a father is the most amazing thing. Like that's, if you say, hey, what, that's, I don't want to get religious here, but I think, a connection to God or the universe is very important. But then it's your family, it's your partner, it's your children, and then create that generational wealth, right? So figure out how can you continue the legacy that you've built financially, but also how can you continue the knowledge base that you've built and translate that to the next generation. If you can impact just two people, if you can change two people's lives for the better and teach them to impact two other people in 33 years, just two people, that equates to 8 billion people affected in 33 years. So that's basically a generation. So in one generation, you starting, if you're listening today and changing the lives of two people can go on and affect literally the entire population of the world we have in one generation. So we're not, all hope is not lost for the world today. I'm very optimistic that we can continue to improve and change the world for the better.
Right. And do you think for your success, I know you mentioned it earlier that, there's God as the top and children is the next below that. Do you feel like having a religious background contributed to your success in being successful and just having that stability?
Personally, yes. So I think I lost my sister a year ago in a car crash. We had Helene hit Asheville here and really created fortunately not a lot of property destruction, but a lot of financial destruction for our family and the community as a whole. And but having that faith, and again, you may have a different religious view, but just knowing that there's a higher power, there's a higher consciousness out there, and getting in touch with that, and that could be nature. For a lot of people. But, I think if we go out in nature and we connect, with the world in a different way and realize that it's not just us, it's not us against somebody else. Like we're all connected. That kind of goes into all this. And that's helped me pull through some of the darkest times for sure.
Yeah. I definitely found a lot of people, especially successful people, they have some way or form a belief that, there is a higher being. And I think, like you mentioned, there's a lot of people who have that stable, datums in their life that God is above us and that we have that available to us. But also, there comes the children and then other aspects of that too. So I think that's very, very important. So I think having that just really opens the gate to a lot of success for you and for other people, because there's a lot of people out there who, believe it or not, don't believe in anything. And I think that's why they're really, and they're not really, being successful,
Yeah. And again, kind of to lean into that a little bit more, Josh, I agree. And it's like, because I think when you get to that point where you have enough and you look around, you realize like, well, wait, what is this really all for? Right. And when we have, again, that connection, just really with humanity, when it comes down to it, if you say, hey, I'm connected to humanity, I can make a difference in the world and look for a way to do that. That higher purpose, I think, really helps drive you. And like, let's take Elon Musk. Again, he's, I just bought a Tesla yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and some people love Elon, some people don't like Elon, but and this is not, he's not talking about religion, but he has a higher purpose. He's like, I want to allow the human race to perpetuate, whether that's, making sure that he's creating a product like a Tesla that's going to be better for the environment, or whether it's getting to Mars and giving humans the ability to go to another planet. He's got that higher purpose that pulls him and expands the success across all his companies. So again, if you're listening and you're like, I don't agree with you, I'm not religious, that you can have a higher purpose that's not around religion, that can pull you to that. So I encourage anybody that's listening, even if it's not religious, you can choose a purpose that's bigger than you, that's lasting further than you, and that will encourage you. It'll drive you, to that higher level of success. I think that's really key.
Yeah. Also, it leaves you to wanting to do more, and I think doing more, because at the end of the day, yes, we're doing a business, and we are, creating something for ourselves, but it's just how far we want to take that, how much we want to give back to the world. Because I think we're I wouldn't say we're fragile, but we kind of are fragile in a way where
we are. Yeah, we're very life is fragile. Yeah, take it from me. It from me, man. I've lost my father in a plane crash, lost my sister in a car accident, lost my best friend to a brain hemorrhage. Lost my mother to cancer. Life is fragile. So, and I think I talk about that in my book, there's Malcolm Gladwell talks about children that have lost parents when they're younger, and they're disproportionately in positions as politicians, as CEOs, as very successful people. And when I thought about that, being an engineer and being analytical, when you take a math equation and you say, well, I'm going to live forever. If forever, infinity, is the denominator in that equation in terms of valuing time, then your time is worth zero if you think you're going to live forever, right? Because that denominator is infinity. When you realize it's finite, man, I started getting up after I lost Chris, and I'm like, I've got to train harder, so I became super successful that following year in cycling. And then, when my mother passed away, I was like, whoa, I've got to produce for my children, right? And I don't know how much time I had. So, I worked as hard as I could, to create that success. So when you realize that we have a limited amount of time, it creates an urgency, and a fire underneath you that can really pull you forward. So I hope that if you're listening, you don't have to experience something like that. But you can take inspiration from that and really, realize that, every day that we have is valuable. And let me push that out to you that are listening that are younger. Mm-hmm. If you're young, we all have heard how powerful compound interest is in the business world, right? You start investing when you're 18. And if you do that for a few years, until you're 30, until you're your age, Josh, your money is going to grow greater than somebody that invests the same amount of money from 30 all the way until 65, because it's compound interest. But your time compounds as well. So don't buy in to this fallacy of when you're young, take a lot of risk and go out there and enjoy yourself. Because when you're young, if you're building your business and you're building success, that doesn't mean you can't go and have adventures. I've rafted down the Grand Canyon. I've ridden my bicycle all over the United States. I've traveled around the world. You can still have experiences, but realize that don't waste your youth, because that time you spend when you're young building will compound and will lead to success in your life as you get older. And if you do that when you're young, you'll far eclipse those people that wait until they're in their 30s or even later to get started.
You hear that? So don't waste your time if you're younger than me. Don't waste your time. That should be your next book. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money.
That's a good one. I've written a few books now. So that may be my next one. So
yeah. There's a friend of mine who, I'll tell you a funny story is, so he's so he's got a couple businesses, but one of them particularly is his education on tax laws and how it works.
Yes.
And he's got
Yeah.
two books. He's got two books, one on relationships and another one is on taxes and having clients. It's called Don't Be a Slave to Your Clients. I think it was really
I love
hysterical.
that. I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah.
but he loves to play with those words, you know what I mean? So I think it's super important to, like, you have to,
Yeah.
we obviously don't have a lot of time in this world, but it's just how you want to impact the way you approach that is up to you.
Yeah.
And I think there's a best way. And I think coming from you, I think it's really good just to see how you evolved over time, just to actually get yourself more out there, more, I think a lot of people, like for us, we're a little, we're scared. I think we're like, oh, what's the right thing to do? What's not the right thing to do? And I think for you, where should people start with, what's the right path? Like, what would you say? Like, what if you were to give, from your experience,
Mm-hmm.
you've obviously lived a very horrific / amazing life in some shape or form.
Yeah.
But like, what direction would you say people, let's say maybe younger than me, they're 20, they're 25, they're even 18 years old. What direction should they go in terms of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is, find something that you're passionate about that you can make a lot of money. And, it might not be the perfect job, but pick a job that's going to make you more valuable for the next job, for the next role you take. Okay. So you need a high income job or business. Number two, think like an investor. So that's something that Robert Kiyosaki talks about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But from when you're young, and I talked about the investment of time when you're young, but also start investing, start learning, love it. That's beautiful. I got my signed copy from Robert right here in my cabinet. But make sure that you learn about investing early, because that's going to compound. And after you have that high income, career or business, invest that capital on the side. And that's why I said, we help investors achieve financial independence through education and investments. You can find our invest link at nextlevelincome.com, and you can learn about the investments that we bring our investors in alongside of us to help them achieve financial independence. Once you don't have to work any longer because your business or your investments are kicking off enough money, now you're free. Now, that doesn't mean you quote unquote retire. I hate that word. Get it out of your mind. There's no such thing. Okay. What you need to do is then use that time to expand your business and your mission in life. So I know that's not like super concrete, but number one, find a high income career or business. Number two, invest until you achieve financial independence. And then three, continue on that mission driven goal that you have.
Amazing. I think that's super powerful too, because I think a lot of people need to hear that, besides their parents. I don't know if my parents were never like this, but I know a lot of people in today's world, parents are like, oh, take it easy, like relax, like, you're rushing. I'm sure you probably heard it all from a lot of people, but I know that my parents they're like, go for it, dude. Just literally just go. Yep. Like just take your wings and just go.
You're very lucky. And what I found is during those times in my life where I'm like, I'm going to pull back and take it easier, I found this sense of like unease. I would like not fulfilled. And I think we achieve fulfillment through achievement. And one of our family rules is do your best. Some of the others are tell the truth. Is one of them. Be kind is another one, so be kind out there in the world, but every day get up and do your best. Because when you go to bed and you're like, I've done everything I could, you will feel a level of achievement, of fulfillment, whereas I know you're listening and you're saying, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Chris. Like, if you do your best and you fail, then you've done all you could. If you failed, then look in the mirror and say, why did I fail? Did I do everything I could? Did I make a wrong choice? So go out there. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Iterate, repeat it. One of the things that successful CEOs have in common compared to those that aren't as successful, it's not that they make better choices. It's actually that they make more choices. They make quick decisions. They learn from those decisions, and then they iterate and make better decisions. So if you've got a period of time and you try to make the perfect decision and you wait and wait and wait, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to make the right decision, and it's wrong, maybe out of your control, you don't have time to make another decision. Make a quick decision, but learn from that decision, whether it's good or bad, and then iterate going forward.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I really appreciate the time you've given us and just learning a lot of this stuff. And I honestly, you probably inspired me a lot more than probably a lot of other people. And I don't say that a lot about
Thank
other
you.
people. Yeah, I think I think you inspire. I don't know if someone has ever told you, you inspire definitely some youthfulness in the youth. Like you inspire people to go forward in a lot of different things. So I think I really appreciate it. I think probably people who are listening also appreciate what you're saying in terms of what the goals are and like giving back to the community and all that stuff. And I really appreciate a lot of the information you've given us on all that. So I know you had a gift that you wanted to give away for the audience here.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier, but if you're listening today and you go to nextlevelincome.com, click on the book link, and you can download. It's not kind of there. We go. Now it's in focus. You can download the ebook immediately if you're impatient like me, but you can also put your address in, and my team will send you a copy. So get a free copy of our book. Take a look at our podcast. Our mission is to help you wherever you are in life get to that next level towards financial independence. We help people optimize their taxes, optimize their insurance structures. And then if you say, man, I got a successful business, Chris, I need to create some additional passive income. We help investors do that as well. You can click on the invest link and schedule a call with me and our team and learn a little bit more about that as well.
Wow. Amazing. Well, Chris, I really appreciate the time you've given us on this. And I think obviously people who are listening to this, I think you guys would definitely love Chris and his book, which Chris, you're going to have to send me one of your books. I want one of those books.
You got it. I'll get you a signed copy, Josh. My pleasure.
Great. Awesome. And I really appreciate, especially a busy guy like you. Sorry, not busy, active. You're a very active guy.
My man. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really appreciate you giving us the time for that. And of course, everyone who's listening, thank you for joining us. And if you guys like this type of stuff, please like and subscribe and definitely check us out and definitely check out Chris and his book. I definitely recommend that. Okay. And everyone, and Chris, it was an honor talking to you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.